Hey friends, welcome back to Mental Notes with Matt, the podcast where we explore what it means to live honestly, feel fully, and show up for our lives in a real way. Today's guest is someone I met years ago during a pretty scrappy chapter of my life. I was doing catering gigs and odd jobs in New York City, trying to keep my acting dream alive. And I remember this one person standing out, not just for how talented he was, but for how unapologetically himself he was. That person is Stephen Mosher. Stephen is a celebrated photographer and writer, someone who's captured portraits of Broadway stars and artists with a kind of presence and sincerity that you don't forget. But this episode isn't just about his creative work, it's about the life he's lived. Stephen is a sober alcoholic who's lived with depression since he was 13. He's survived 2 suicide attempts, and he's still here, grounded in practices that help him stay connected: transcendental meditation, therapy, and the love of his family. One of the things I appreciate most about Stephen is that he's not here to perform. He's here to tell the truth. And I think you'll feel that in every moment of this conversation. So Stephen, thank you again for taking the time to be with me. Let's just dive right in.
Thank you. Thanks for asking me, Matt.
Absolutely. So you spent a lifetime documenting other people, capturing something that's real in them. Now, when you look back at your body of work, what do you think it reveals about you?
It's funny that you would start with this question because the head of an art foundation recently asked me to create my monograph, and I said, "What the heck is that?" And he said, "The collection of work that you think would represent you after you're gone." And so I've been studying 4 decades worth of photography, and what I've come up with is that I am Pollyanna.
Hmm.
I am a cockeyed optimist. I am a hopeful romantic, or hopeless romantic, or both. What I've seen in my pictures is that I look for beauty, I look for joy, I look for love, I look for friendship. I'm aware because I was there when it happened. I tried to be edgy. I tried to go dark. I tried to create, you know, pictures that people would say, "Oh, look how dark, look how edgy." But it does not come naturally to me. It is not authentic. It's not organic. So I just stay with, taking pictures of what I find beautiful.
I love that answer. Pollyanna, that I resonate with that also. I try to be an optimist as much as possible. I think that I find it easier to be positive for other people, and I sometimes struggle with injecting that positivity into myself. But I agree, doing something that doesn't feel like it's quite aligned with your authenticity can be really difficult to grapple with.
I spent some time in my younger years being inauthentic. I spent some time worrying about changing myself for other people or trying to be a particular way that I thought might make people like me more or
Mm.
accept me more or want me more. And none of that paid off. None of it. Being false to who I was, it didn't get me any further than I was when I started. And so I just sort of said, "The heck with it. I'm just gonna be who I am, and there's a lot of different sides to that."
Yeah, for sure. I've spent a lot of my time masking and altering my default setting in order to try to attract more people into my life or whatever. And it's funny because when I met you for the first time, from my perspective, that you had already gotten to that point of not really giving a shit about what people think about you. And I think that it can be really difficult to understand that there's judgment happening around you and still say, screw it.
I think that when we were catering together, was I still in my 40s? I might have already been in my 50s. I think I was in my 50s, and at that point, I'd reached the screw it stage. But also, I was captaining those events, and I had to be comfortable being who I was. And I felt like the clients were like horses; they can smell the fear.
Hmm. You had to be authentically who you were. And I think that that was the best version of you to actually present, because your natural state, to me anyway, is someone that wants to connect with people and wants everyone to be having a good time and to be happy.
Well, like if I'm hosting you in my house, I want you to have a good time. But that was our job.
Yeah.
Did you find that you had to be a certain way, or was it just like head down, serve the plates, and keep moving?
No, I think there's always been this need to be more than I was, in every situation. It wasn't just those catering gigs. It was all situations where I was with other people. The idea of me just coming to the table as myself 100% never really felt like it was going to be enough, you know. I've been dipping my toes into my true authenticity, and it's scary. And it's scary because you spend so much of your life, I think, showing yourself to the world in a certain way that all these people that quote unquote know you, putting yourself out there in a truly authentic way and telling your truth may cause the people in your life that viewed you a certain way to look at you and be like, who the hell is this guy? And you know what? That should be okay. That should be okay. So I'm getting used to that, you know.
Also in the acting industry, there
Oh yeah.
is so much, I guess, smoke and mirrors,
Mm.
so much scrim in the acting industry, the show business industry, because there's more than just acting. There's the singers and the dancers, and there's always, and with social media, it's really a lot of dress up and make believe.
I think it's easier to spot inauthenticity because of how much we're exposed to all the time. Like, you're seeing the version of these stars and these artists and the content that they've polished and have put out there, but we're also seeing their real lives. So
Yeah.
you can tell pretty immediately the stuff they put out there that's polished isn't really authentically who they are.
Yes, and I've got some faces, some famous faces running through my mind right now. I won't say their
Hmm.
names online on the air.
Well, so do you remember the first time that someone really saw you? Like, not the version that performs or produces, but the person underneath.
My mother, and the thing about that is there wasn't a first time. There wasn't a first time that somebody saw me for who I am, because I grew up with my mother knowing who I was, knowing what I was, and supporting me. She never like tried to change me. She never tried to turn me into her vision of what she wanted her son to be. She just knew me and
Mm,
accepted me. There were times when she tried to help me to kind of whittle away the troubled parts of me that she could see would make me unhappy later.
mhm.
Does that make sense?
It does. It seems like it's a form of protection on her part. She wants you to grow up and be accepted and be loved. And, it seems like what you're saying is she saw things that maybe, she could point out that potentially could help you to not experience pain growing up.
Yes, my mother came from a show business family. My grandmother and my grandfather worked in the studio system of the 40s and the 50s in Hollywood. My mother and father were both in the circus. So there was a natural amount of drama in our lives. And
Mm.
so I think that she spotted very early that I was her little gay drama queen son. And she knew from experience that being a drama queen doesn't get you anywhere.
Uh-huh.
And so she tried to help me to temper it, to dial it back, and to make choices that would not leave me wounded.
Right. During those times, did it feel like scaling back the full unadulterated version of you was going to help, or did it feel like it stifled something?
No, nothing she ever did stifled me. I always felt. I'll tell you a funny story. I don't want to ramble. I don't want to go on too long, but
Please,
this.
please do. Please do.
Okay, so I grew up. We traveled a lot for my father's work, and we all ended up living overseas. And we would come back to the States during the summers to see the kinfolk. And there was a very popular boy teen idol at that time in the 70s named Sean Cassidy,
Mm,
who put out a poster that you could hang on your wall. And it was of him bare chested wearing a pale blue satin windbreaker. And I thought that was the sexiest thing ever. And we were in Fresno visiting my mother's parents, and I found a white satin windbreaker, and I bought that booger, and I took it back to Switzerland with me. And on the second day of school, I came bouncing down the stairs in my bare-chested white satin windbreaker, unbuttoned to my belly button. And my mother said, "What are you wearing?" And I said, "I'm wearing my white satin windbreaker." And she said, "Without a shirt?" And I said, "Yes." And she said to me, "You think you're John Travolta sexy ass, but you're really Stephen Mosher stupid ass. Now go put on a shirt." Yeah. She said, "Go upstairs and put on a shirt." So in my 30s, I told her that story, and she said, "I did not." And I said, "Yes, you did, and you did it the right way because I would have been pummeled." You know what I mean? She didn't cut any corners. She got straight to it, and she made me put on some clothes and go be a boy at school that didn't get his face beat up.
Right, right. So it comes from this desire to protect you in a world that can be extraordinarily cruel sometimes.
Absolutely. She
Yeah.
always wanted to protect me.
Well, that's wonderful that you've had that relationship with your mother of acceptance and protection.
Yes.
That being said, we can't be shielded by all the stuff that we're affected by growing up. You've entrusted me with information about having survived 2 suicide attempts and
Yes.
still to this day experiencing suicidal thoughts from time to time, but you've made a choice not to go there again. Is there a difference now? I mean, what anchors you?
My first suicide attempt when I was 13, and my second was when I was 19. So I was still a teenage drama queen. And in the meantime, I learned how much I value life, how much I value what is here. And, quite literally suffer from depression, and I refuse medication. Medication doesn't work on me. So I have to sort of make it a day at a time. And what I've discovered is that at my lowest ebb, I can always enjoy the sun on my face. And, on the days that I'm at my most unhappy, I can still find pleasure in holding my husband's hand. On my worst days, I can be made better by music. And I value what's here. I'd rather work at getting better than just chuck it. But the other thing is, and this is important, after that last suicide attempt when I was 19, I woke up in the ICU in the emergency room and I saw my mother's face. And I remember what I put my mother and father through with that stunt. And I think that I thought if I never have to put that expression on somebody's face again, then I should avoid suicide at all costs. I wouldn't want to leave that pain behind for my husband. I wouldn't want to leave that legacy behind for the people who love me. I am really quite anti-suicide, but I'm glad that I had those two experiences because it's helped me to help other people get across the bridge, to get to a place, to get off the ledge.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah, that it's interesting what you were saying, these simple things in life that you were able to draw from, the sun on your face, holding your husband's hand, listening to music. We live in a world where it's so difficult to be satisfied or just to sit with the simple things in life. But when we strip everything away and really sit with those small things, they really are the good stuff. It's
Yeah.
good to remind ourselves and to take a deep breath and realize all this extra stuff that we have. We think it's making us happier and more efficient, but stripping it all away and, sitting with yourself and being grateful for the small things can be extraordinarily powerful. And also knowing, the things that you felt you needed to do in those moments when you were 13 and 19 years old extend and affect everybody else in your life and not wanting to hurt other people in the process of following through with all of that.
Yeah.
you know was there a day when it was particularly hard to stay, and what did you do to stay anyway?
A day. Oh my gosh. I once went to bed for 18 months. That was, I went to bed for 18 months. I would get out of bed if somebody offered me money to work
Hmm.
or if I ran out of Little Debbie snack cakes. But I will tell you this, there was a day and I'm really bad with the passage of time, so it was maybe a year, maybe 2 years after that last suicide attempt at 19, and I was living in a small college town in Texas, and the depression came in, and I don't know if you remember this, you're younger than me, so you may not know this. There's a movie called The Never Ending Story.
Of course. Yeah, I've seen it.
Do you remember when the horse got so depressed in The Nothing and, like, died?
Yes.
Yes, so
Iconic scene.
we're all scarred by that. For I don't know what this is like for other people, but for me, the depression is like the nothing.
Hmm.
And so it just sort of set in. There I was, maybe 20, 21, 22, in college with the depression, and I didn't want to hurt myself. And I called again. I called my mother, and I said, I'm in trouble. And she got in her car and drove the 45 minutes from Fort Worth to Denton, and she sat with me, and she stayed with me, and she talked to me, and she kept me going until the sun came up. And I'm always better when the sun's out.
So you have spoken about transcendental meditation, and I know bits and pieces of it. Doesn't it surround, having a very specific for you mantra that you develop? Can
Uh,
you tell me a little bit about your
yes,
experience with it?
you did some homework.
I took a workshop once to get introduced to the idea, but I never followed through with doing it. And mostly it was because of cost
Yes,
for the sessions.
so
However, I see the benefit.
it was not cheap.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you, I had reached a really low ebb. I'd been sober for 10 years, and then I started drinking again while working in the catering industry because the booze was everywhere,
Yeah.
and the drama of the catering industry really just sent me over the edge, and I started drinking again, and it was harder to quit this time. My husband, Pat, came to me and he said, "I have found a transcendental meditation class through the actual, TM center." And he said, "I want us to take this. It's going to cost us this much money." And after I came to, I said, "Okay, we can do that," because the cost was considerable.
Yeah.
And I said, "Let's do it." We went, we took the classes. I want to say it was 3 nights, maybe 2 or 3 hours a night of classes. And before you leave, they sit you down with your coach, your mentor, your teacher, and they give you your mantra. And so twice a day for 22 minutes, and we try to do this together. We don't always get to because I have a crazy work schedule. But twice a day, once in the morning, once in the evening, we sit down and we meditate. You are never to share what your mantra is. So he doesn't know mine, I don't know his. Started this path to get me sober. I got sober, but we still, and it's been years now. We still do it every single day
Yeah.
because I find for me it gives me focus, it gives me foundation, it keeps me calm, it helps me see things clearly. I've stayed clean and sober. And I'll tell you something else. There are certain days of the week where I might find that I'm agitated or cranky or in some kind of a bad mood. And when I notice that I am, if I ask myself, "Did you meditate today?" The answer is no. And there are times when I'll start to feel a little anxious about something, and I'll go to Pat and say, "I know it's 2 hours early, but can we meditate right now?" And when we're done, I'm back on firm ground.
Yeah. I've heard it's a very powerful way into mindfulness. There are a lot of really big names that have spoken about it. David Lynch is the one that comes to mind, the filmmaker, and I've heard him speak about that.
I believe that he has said that he has never missed a meditation in like
Well,
4 decades.
yes, yeah, and I know he passed away recently. It may have been like last year, I think.
Yeah.
But I've heard this, twice a day without fail. And that seems like a difficult thing to do, but everyone I've spoken to or that I've, kind of seen that uses transcendental meditation, they really do stick to it. So it must have some kind of, power and sustainability keeping you grounded.
For years, and it's not just transcendental meditation, it's any kind of meditation.
Yeah.
I would listen to people talk about meditation, and I would say, "Oh, it's so hard. It's so hard. I'll never get my mind." Do you know what? It's not that hard. You kind of do it.
Yeah.
Sometimes when I wake up in the morning, I'm making my first pot of tea. That's a kind of meditation. There are various meditations we do every day. This is just one where you sit for 20 minutes inside your head and repeat your mantra, and it just sort of clears away all the stuff that I need cleared away.
Yeah, all the clutter in there, yeah.
Yeah.
So, what does healing look like for you right now? Not as a fixed state, but as an ongoing practice.
So I just turned 61.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. It was a couple weeks ago. I feel really good. What I've noticed, and I was just talking to my girlfriend about this, I spend more time than I've ever done in my life, more time every single day on self care. And the thing is, I kind of wish that I'd started being more like this earlier in my life. But right now, as I'm getting older and the muscles aren't as supple, and, you just have to say, because like for me, every day, there's a combined hour of meditation and then there's an hour of working out. But there's an hour of stretching and foam rolling, and there's skincare and vegan meal prep and dental hygiene and gut health. And I take a lot of naps, and sometimes I have to stop and give myself pep talks. And it feels like a full-time job.
You're right. Yeah.
But that's because it is. The thing is, I have fewer days ahead than I have behind, and I'd like to live them all happily. But the only way to do that is make sure that my body feels good and that my mind feels good and that I have as few, health issues as possible, whether it's mental health or physical health. And I cannot stress this enough. Therapy, the meditation and the therapy. I've been in therapy since I was 13 after that first suicide attempt, and I never had a therapist as good as the one that I'm with right now. We've been
Mm,
together for about a year. His name is Gabe Lopez, and after one session, he had done more for me than any of the therapists I'd ever had in my life.
that's incredible.
And that, like people who don't want to go to therapy, I just want to say, no, 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 no.
Haven't found the right one.
Yeah, exactly.
I agree 100%. And I've had this conversation with a few friends that have been resistant their entire lives. And it's because they've, from my perspective, it's because they haven't been matched with someone that was able to speak with them and hear them in the way that they needed to be spoken to and to be heard.
Yeah.
And I think that they've given up on the idea of therapy altogether, which is a shame because I've had some really good ones and some really bad ones. So I definitely understand it, but it's like any other relationship. You've got to find one that clicks for you. And that's incredible that in just an hour, that person was able to connect to so much more than other people in the past had a hard time getting to with
I'll
you.
tell you what, I went for my second session, the second week with Gabe, and he opened the door and I said, "How are you today?" And he said, "I'm fine. How are you?" And I said, "Look at how nice your hair is." And he said, "You did that thing." And I said, "What thing?" He said, "I asked you how you were and you changed the topic."
Aha.
In one session, he had clocked that that was my thing.
Yes.
And I've been doing it for years.
Yes.
And the thing is, with the therapy and the meditation, with all of that is contingent upon you making the decision to be healthy.
Yeah. It needs to come from you.
Yeah,
You need to be the one that wants to do it, not for other people.
it's true.
And it's very true. And I get down on myself every once in a while for not being super consistent with going to the gym or whatever, or meditating. But you've got to be ready in your own mind, and you have to want it. I think it's a big part of
I'll tell you something. These days, I work as a personal trainer,
it. Hmm.
and I have students that will say to me, like I just got back from a vacation, and one of my students said, "I didn't work out once while you were gone. 9 days without working out." And I said, "But you came today.
Hmm.
Today is the day that matters."
Yes.
So on days that you get down on yourself, Matt Ungama, you just say, "Today's the day that matters."
Yes. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. So, what would you say to someone who might be listening right now and going through some of the hard stuff that you've experienced in your life?
What would I say?
Yeah, I mean, not to be like a fixer, but as someone that understands that ache,
Mm, mm, mm.
so someone that might be listening right now that's having a really hard time, what
I
might you say to that person?
I think I would say nobody understands.
Yeah.
Nobody understands what you're going through. Anyone who has a mental health challenge, or like me as an addict, anyone who has an addiction, anyone who has a condition or a situation, it is unique to you.
Yeah.
You know, my experience is not like yours, and there will be people who can relate. There will be people that can draw parallels to their own experience, but you're the person who's living inside of the body and the mind and the heart and the struggle, and nobody understands that. That's why you have to speak up. You have to share your story. You have to ask for help. People can't read your mind, and they won't know if you're struggling. I'm a master at. I'm fine. No, no, no. I'm a master at that shit.
Yeah.
You know, and so you have to be prepared to do the hard thing, which is go to somebody and say, "I need help,"
Right.
because they can't read your mind. And like I don't do that because I don't want people to perceive me as a whiner or a complainer or a kvetch, or as somebody who's weak. But I had to learn. I had to teach myself to say, "All right, this is too much." And I go to my husband and I sit down and I look in his eyes and I say, "I'm in trouble and I need help." If you're going through something, you have to share your story because nobody understands it.
You're right. You're right. I mean, we can empathize as much as we want. We can feel like we understand what the person's going through, but their story is so nuanced and layered with all of their life experience and also what's kind of built in, you know. You're right. You need to be honest about what it is that you're going through and be willing to talk to someone and get the support, maybe not for someone to fully understand you, but for them to be there, you know, to help you to help you weather that storm.
It's true, but also, and I don't know if a lot of people look at it this way, it's very important for them. It's very important for the people around you to know you. It's
Yeah.
very, if I got ran over by a bus tomorrow, the people in my life will be able to say, I knew him because I opened up to them. I have a very close friend who really cannot stand opening up to people. And when he does, he says, I don't want to be a burden.
Right.
And I keep saying to him, you have never been a burden on me. Because as someone who loves him, I want to know what his experience is. I want to have been that person that was there for him, just as there's somebody that's been that person for me.
Absolutely. And I think I resonate with this a lot because I feel that way too. You know, I don't want to bother people. I don't want to, put all my stuff on them. But you don't know if they don't want that. You know, the people that you have in your life are in your life for a reason. They're there for you. So why not trust that if you have something to say that they're going to be there to listen and will
Oh,
at least try to understand.
dude, there are people who live for that shit. They're just
Yeah,
waiting to be the person that you turn to. They're waiting to say, "Oh my God, he called me when he was in a bad mood." You know,
absolutely.
that's like crack to some people.
Yeah, yeah. And I think a lot of the time it's, we're framing it in our minds like, oh, we're going to be bothering someone. You got to flip that around and approach it in a way where it's like, this is my friend and they're going to be, inviting and accepting of what I have to say and they're going to want to try to help me. I think it's easy to go to the negative.
It gives your relationships an intentionality.
Yeah. Yeah, it helps you to go deeper.
Correct.
All right, Stephen. Well, before we wrap it up, I just want to ask you a few rapid fire kind of fun questions. So just answer whatever comes to mind first.
Oh
As a
Lord have mercy.
photographer, what's a photo that you've taken that carries a piece of your soul?
All of my pictures carry my soul.
Yeah, I knew you'd say something like
Well, I mean, they're my children.
that. Right.
All right. So here we go. There's these days I've been drawn to a photo that I made of my husband kissing my mother during one of our last visits with her. And it's not a work of art, it's just a snapshot that I took on my phone. But just the genuine affection and emotion, it's stuck in my head right now, that picture.
Very nice. Beautiful. What is a song that brings you home to yourself?
Oh my gosh. All right, I wish I could be profound and say something like the flower duet or
No, no, no. Personal to
Imagine
you.
or Anyone Can Whistle, but I recently realized, and it's really just like in the last year. Do you know the song Vanessa Williams sang called Save the Best for Last?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Like anytime that song comes on my shuffle, I am immediately made calm,
Nice. Music is so powerful.
particularly for me.
Yeah. Well, Stephen, thank you, honestly, for coming on and sharing, with clarity and, the way that you show up in the world without trying to clean it up first. Seriously, conversations like this are, reminds me why I started this podcast in the first place. It's not to find answers, but to tell the truth out loud, which you said a few times. And I fully believe and think as well. And those that are listening, if you're, really in it right now, if things feel heavy or hollow or loud in your head, please don't keep it to yourself. There's help out there, and there are people who care, and we'll have resources linked in the show notes as well. Thank you again for tuning in to Mental Notes with Matt. If this episode resonated, share it with someone you care about, and remember, you're not alone. Keep going. Thank you so much, Stephen. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Matt. I appreciate it back.